guys, my name's Barry and welcome back to the channel, and I'm going to be doing an anniversary video today. It's going to be Halloween from 1978. It has been 45 years since this movie's come out. As you can see, I'm in the podcast studio Glasgow as well, so I've got a bit of a different scenery, and I've got a special guest with me, Callum, who is from Geekified now. He's joined the Geekified crew, and he's going to be talking with me on Halloween because Callum also loves Halloween, don't you, Callum?
I do indeed, yeah. Hello again. It's nice to be back.
Perfect. I'm glad you're here, Callum. Now, it's just going to be the usual, guys. I'm going to tell you my memories of the first time I saw Halloween. Callum's with me as well, so he's going to be doing the exact same thing. We'll talk about the film as well. And like I said, you guys have sent me a lot of messages with regards to your memories of Halloween, which I'll be reading out at the very end. Now, it's quite a popular one because I got over 100 comments on your guys' memories. I absolutely love all the comments. I read them all as well, but I've only selected maybe 7 or 8 comments that I will be reading at the end because I can't read them all out because the video would last way too long.
Forever.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with you, Callum, because I think I've told a lot of people about my memories of Halloween all the time. I will be doing it again. But I've not asked you about, I know you love Halloween, but I've not asked you how you came about watching it, you know, who told you about it, what age were you, etc.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of start with yourself. How were you introduced to Halloween?
I was introduced to it via my papa. My papa used to always watch movies in bed. He had one of those orthopedic beds that tipped up at the back.
I need one of them.
Yeah. And I was in primary school, so I was very, very young. And I used to watch all kinds of movies with him, old Sean Connery James Bond movies, James Cagney gangster movies, John Wayne Western movies, but he also liked horror. So I'd watched like The Nightmare on Elm Street, Silence of the Lambs, a lot of those films, and Halloween was one of them. And I can just remember it so vividly, sitting with him, terrified. But he was like, wait till you see this bit, wait till you see this bit. And he was always kind of egging me on, being like, and he just disappears at the end and you don't know what happens. And I'm like, whoa.
Wait a minute. Did your parents know about this?
No.
No?
But I hearken it back to that's when my love of film began, because nobody else in my family was really big into movies. My dad hasn't watched a full movie for a long, long time. He just falls asleep straight away.
Yeah.
When he took us to the cinema, the trailers would hit and he'd just be like,
yeah, type of
my mum likes movies, but not like passionately. So there wasn't really anybody like that in my life, other than my papa. So that's where my kind of love of film began, and that's how I got introduced to it.
That's quite cool. I remember like my gran and my granda and stuff like that. I don't think I remember ever watching a film with them. My gran would buy me some VHSs for my Christmas and stuff, and like Lady and the Tramp, which was a big one for me. But no, I don't ever remember watching any type of movie with my grandparents, so that's quite a nice thing to remember.
Yeah.
But my dad was the one that maybe got me into horror films. My mum was okay with it. The first film that I watched with my dad was Just Before Dawn. I think I've told everybody this. And we did watch Halloween when we were kids, but I think Halloween is such a deep film that you just watch it and you enjoy what you're watching, but not what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Like I didn't understand anything about it. I just thought it's a horror film. I'm going to watch it and I'm going to love it. So sadly, when I first watched the film, I don't even remember what age I was. I was very young. I was under 10, but I don't remember anything about it. So my first memory of really watching it and going, I absolutely love that film, was back in 1998.
Right.
I remember going out with my friend. We were too old to trick or treat, or we thought we were too old to trick or treat. So we would just put on scary masks and go and scare people. And we knew that Halloween was on the TV. It must have been like 10 o'clock at night. So we said to ourselves, right, we'll go out, we'll scare people, and then we'll come back and we'll watch Halloween. Because we said, we've seen it before, but let's watch it. And I remember everything. Maybe I've told you this before, but I remember I can even taste the bacon. I remember going home to his house, and he made us a piece of bacon, or a bacon sandwich for you guys. A bacon sandwich, a little bit of butter, wasn't too crispy, wasn't too soft, and it was beautiful. He made it. We were only 12 years old. He made it, and I was like, this is amazing. So we sat down with our costumes on, and we watched Halloween, and his big brother was there, his wee brother was there. His mum was out. It was just like the boys were in the house, and we watched it and we were completely blown away by it. We're like, I still didn't fully understand it, but I just remember like, this is amazing. Like I even remember looking at it going, the cinematography. I didn't use those words, but I was like, the cinematography is great, the lighting's great, the characters are great, everything was absolutely fantastic. And I don't think I was scared because I was with my boy pals and we were all like, yeah, we're men. But I still remember watching it and going, wow, this is such a great horror film. And at that point, I knew that Halloween H2O was coming out. And I loved all the teen slashers at that point because of Scream. I know what you did last summer. So I was like, right, we've got Halloween H2O coming out. I need to watch Halloween. And I was just completely blown away by it.
Yeah.
When you watched it with your papa, did you watch it over and over again with the same person with your papa, or did you go home and go, I'm going to watch this? And
I definitely went home and had nightmares. As I said, I was very, very young, and at that point, I always assumed that movies were real life. I just couldn't separate between what I'm watching. I just thought it was like real life.
Yeah.
It's just when I watched Armageddon and Bruce Willis dies, I thought John McClane died.
Yeah.
And Die Hard.
No more Die Hard.
Still the only movie that's made me cry.
It's my job! You go take care of my little girl now.
No, I've cried a lot of movies, cannot. But I just remember really vivid scenes like Loomis's trench coat and on the phone, the phone box.
Phone box, yeah.
I remember Bob, the scene with Michael jumping out at him and the ghost Bob. And then I remember just the ending scene where Michael's gone. Like he's 1 minute he's there, next minute he's gone, and just being like, holy shit. And then it wasn't until like my teens when I watched it again. It was on the telly and I just stuck it on. It probably wasn't from the start, you know how it worked
You
back
just
in
turn
the
it
day.
and it's there.
Yeah. And I was like, this is a great movie, and it kind of gave me those feelings that I had when I was a kid watching it. And then my love of Halloween just blossomed from there.
Yeah, I think that's what's key to a lot of films, not just Halloween, that you have a memory of watching a film that you loved back in the day, and because you were in such a happy place at the time with your papa, with me and my friends, when I watch it again, I go back to those days when I'm watching it. I can actually feel, I can taste the bacon again.
Yeah.
And you just get that, like, oh, I feel like I'm way back in time. And it helps that the film's great. Sometimes I'm scared to watch a film that I loved as a kid because it would ruin my experience watching it again. As a kid, I watched The Never Ending Story.
Yes.
And I absolutely loved it. I'm scared to watch it again because I fear that I'll watch it and I'll hate it because it'll probably be dated.
Yeah.
So there's films that I'm just like, I can't watch that because I know it's just going to be terrible again.
I'm quite forgiving with that though. I think if I liked it as a kid, I'm quite like, I don't judge it as much. You know, I'm quite a nostalgic person. I know a lot of people think nostalgia is a bit of a drip, but I'm quite a nostalgic person. Like I'm still into all the same stuff that I was into as a kid. So for me, I give those films leeway.
Yeah, well, I certainly would, but I think you'll get more nostalgic as you grow older. I think younger people, maybe in their 20s or teens, they'll probably think, oh, you can't use nostalgia as a way to say that's good and that's bad. And that's kind of true. But as they get older, they'll probably go, do you know what? I'm nostalgic for a film in 2013 because that's what they loved back in the day. And then 10, 15, 20 years later, they'll go, oh, I feel a nostalgic trip coming. I think that's why I absolutely loved H2O because that was my peak nostalgia moment for slasher movies and horror movies. And it just so happened there was another Halloween film, which was great. In terms of the film itself, when you watched it as a kid, when you watched it over and over again, and even today, do you see it differently quality-wise? Do you think it's got better with age? Do you think it's the same?
I think it's aged very well. I've always watched it, and you know, we know it was made on such a small budget in comparison to a lot of films. I know it was in the 70s, but even the 70s movies were big budgets as well. But I just think the cinematography, Dean Cundy, isn't it? Yeah. Just absolutely like beautiful stuff, and you know, I always get a bit weirded out with horror when it's during the day and you're showing like a kind of villain, or you know, whereas Halloween does that so well. It's creepy in a way that when you see Michael in the light like stalking during the day, you think most predators would stalk at night because that's when it's easy to not be seen. Whereas it flips that on its head, and that's what I loved about it. But that one track shot, well, it's not really a one track shot, we know that. I think there's two cuts in it.
Yeah, when he puts the mask on at the start,
But that is just how difficult that was for them to do as well, because it was a narrow staircase and stuff like that. It's just beautiful. There's so many amazing shots in it, and even the shot across the road where Michael's standing at the house across from the house that Laurie's babysitting at.
The dollhouse.
I think it's Deborah Hill that's playing Michael in that scene. I
Is
think that's the one. It's just
I know that 3 people play Michael in that, or 4 people play Michael in that film.
Yeah. And it's just such a beautiful shot, but I've never looked at it and been like, this is dated.
Yeah.
It's got that real classic quality to it, in my opinion.
Well, when I watch a film from the 70s, I get bored really fast.
Right.
Because I'm like, it's really dated and I can't really watch it. It's really bad. But when I watch Halloween, it's just so advanced. And I think one of the good things about Halloween is, see, it was on like a $300,000 budget, right? And because it was on such a small budget at the time, the companies were saying, right, well, we've got this camera that nobody wants to use. Do you want to test it out? And John Carpenter's like, I want to use that, because I think he spent most of his budget on the camera that they've got.
Yeah.
Halloween was the very first film to use this specific camera. I think it was called a Panavision. It's basically like a Steadicam for back in the 70s. And they were the first ever movie to use it. And because people were a wee bit like, oh, I don't know about this, and maybe it looks too amateur. But he obviously, with the help of Dean Cundy and stuff like that, it just looks amazing. So even watching it today, it's definitely not dated, because when you watch it today, they use the techniques in that film that people use today. And not only do they use the same techniques, people who use the techniques today get it from Halloween. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that they do in Halloween that people are still using as a benchmark today. And that's why when you watch Halloween today, you're like, that still looks great.
Yeah.
Because the things that they do in it, you're like, people don't even do that today because they don't know how to. Or people use that stuff today because it looks so good back in the 70s.
And I think John Carpenter had said that about, he wanted the best cameras. Like, he knew the budget limitations, and he knew that it might not necessarily, the film might not look as good as what he wanted it to, but he wanted to really put it through the paces and make sure it looked as good as possible. Yeah, I respect the hell out of that. Yeah,
because I think that if you've got a story, such a basic story, see if you film that without the cameras and stuff that they had, nobody would have watched it. But I think because he got all the right people involved with such a small budget, it's amazing what they could do. It's basically the 70s version of the Blair Witch Project in the 90s. They got even smaller budget, but they used what they had to their benefit. And look what happened to that. Look what happened to Halloween. So there's only so many films, and even up until now, that it's like lightning in a bottle. Yeah, it only happens once in a blue moon.
Well, it's still talked about 45 years later, and it is a classic. It's up there in the top 5 of all time horror movies. And it's probably in the top 100 of all movies, you know. And for it being a 45-year-old movie, it's amazing. But another thing that stuck with me was the soundtrack. The soundtrack just really, and the fact that it's John Carpenter that's done it as well. Like, it's just, it really gets you, and it elevates again the film just to that next level, because the soundtrack's so good and it matches the tone perfectly. But he's obviously done that for budget reasons as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that, like, they literally had zero budget left from the cameras that they got and Donald Pleasance. Yeah, they're like, right, we don't have a what do you call it? Someone to do the
composer.
A composer. Well, couldn't get the words out there. I don't have a composer. They're like, well, I'll just play the keyboard. Bing, 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 bing.
But imagine someone else that scored that movie. How different the movie would be.
I know. Maybe it was like James Horner or Hans Zimmer or something. Yeah, it was so weird. Obviously they're great, but weird.
I know. I don't think it would work at all. I think that's what's so perfect about it.
Well, sorry, I was just going to say, you've got Academy Award winner Marco Beltrami, Academy Award nominee John Ottman, who done H2O, and people didn't like it. Yeah, they always wanted to go back to someone who wasn't even specialised in that subject. Yeah, and John Carpenter. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I've totally forgot.
Sorry, I just stole your thunder there. So I just wanted to get that out there, because you can get the best composers, but they just don't fit the films that they're in. Yeah, like Marco Beltrami and John Ottman, I think they did fit, but most people don't. So you're like, oh, let's just go back to the tried and tested.
Yeah.
And it's John Carpenter.
And that's what I like about it. It felt very much like John Carpenter was making this movie with all his mates, and you can tell the passion is there.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about film. See, when you get a team that are making a movie that are all invested, all don't care about working 24 hours in a day just to get the right shot.
Yeah.
I love that.
And even the mistakes that they made, they didn't care. I don't know if you remember when they're walking down the street, when Laurie bumps into Sheriff Brackett, you see the guys who are holding the boom mics and stuff, they're standing there smoking.
Oh, right.
You can see them like looking over the hedge.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's in the final shot. It's even in the 4K. I don't know why they've not ripped that out, but it's still there. And I think they keep it in there intentionally because that was them.
Yeah.
That was the mistakes that they made. They're just there to have a good time. They didn't realise that this film was going to be such a massive film. 45 years later, and look at it today, it's still booming, and it's had 12 sequels since the first movie, and they're all making money way more than the original film. So it's
I know. Could you imagine if the original film came out today?
I don't think it would get a chance.
You don't think so? No.
No, I think it would still be good.
Yeah,
but I don't think people would give it a shot. See, if you make a film, what's $300,000 today? It's probably what, £1 million or something like 1.5 million.
More than that.
Think so?
Yeah.
I would check, but I can't be bothered. But I just don't know if it would get the chance today, because it'd be like, are you a multiverse film? No. Are you a superhero film? No. Are you an art house film? They probably are, but they wouldn't be classified as that.
Yeah.
No. So they wouldn't tick all the boxes that films need today.
Yeah.
Which is a shame.
No.
Because look at, I don't know if you've seen it yet, the last voyage of the Demeter.
Yes.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Did
I
you
watched
like
that. Probably watched that last week. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I absolutely loved that film. That cost $45 million.
Wow.
And it didn't make anywhere near as much as that. And it's bombed.
I know, and that's like the thing about film that annoys me is like when you've got a good film like that, it just goes completely under the radar.
Yeah.
That's probably, people are going to go back to that in a year's time and be like, remember that? It's kind of a really good movie, but it's like set on one chapter of Bram Stoker's Dracula, and they just do so much with it. It's so good.
But the material that they had, what they had to work with, it worked wonders. And the problem is, if you said to somebody, what films came out in July 2023, see if you see this in 10 years, what films came out, what ones did you love? They'll be like, oh yeah, Barbie and Oppenheimer and all that, Mission Impossible. Nobody's going to mention the last Voyage of the Demeter. No. And that would be the same with Halloween today. If you brought it out today, imagine you brought it out in July 2023.
Good point, yeah.
Do you know, it's just, it came out at the right time.
Yeah.
Because people wanted to be scared of films. You had The Exorcist a few years before it, Black Christmas.
Alien,
a year after.
Oh, that's right, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, 79. Yeah. So, what'd you call it? The Last House on the Left, I Spit on Your Grave.
Yep.
All those films were kind of edgy films. So Halloween was kind of, John Carpenter didn't even want to make a horror film, but he's like, I'll do it because that's what I've been given, as long as I can get my name above the title. And they're like, well, you're just young and you've only done, was it Starman or something?
He done Assault and Precinct 13 as well.
So he wasn't established enough to get his name above the title, but he's like, I'm not doing it unless you put my name above it.
Yeah.
And like, okay, fair enough. So they done it, and that's obviously how we got Halloween.
And then he went and made The Thing.
Then when you watch Halloween, you're like, you're not going to get any better than Halloween.
I know.
And then you get The Thing, and you're like, geez, this guy is great.
He could have retired.
He should have retired in the 80s. And even then when they're like, right, I don't want to do a horror film, I want to do something different, he brings us Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
And that is one of the greatest films of all time. So John Carpenter was gold back then. And all these films flopped, apart from Halloween. All these films, like Big Trouble in Little China, flopped. The Thing was critically panned.
Yes.
Back in 82.
That's true.
And so sometimes films need a few years to mature. And I think that's the same with John Carpenter's work. It needed time to mature. Apart from vampires, I still don't like vampires. I don't know if you like that.
I love that movie.
No,
It's nostalgic for me. I saw it on like channel 4 or 5 back in the day, and I was just like, it's a bit fun.
I watched it around about the same time as From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yes.
So I'm just like, nah, From Dusk Till Dawn's my film, not vampires. So I think vampires maybe came out at the wrong time.
Yeah.
I couldn't get into it.
And it could have been better as well, but
yeah.
I love James Woods in that movie.
Do you know who plays the vampire, the main vampire?
I was looking at this the other day. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to place his face in my head, and I've totally mind blanked.
It's Terry Silver from Cobra Kai.
Oh,
Karate Kid.
yeah, that's right.
I can't remember his name. Is it Thomas Ian Griffiths or something?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Now I see his face.
It's him. He's black hair this time, though, not silver hair.
He looks so vampire-esque, though, doesn't he? Like, as in general.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got that kind of long head thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to Halloween though, never mind Cobra Kai, which is coming out again the last season. So yeah, 45 years later, obviously I was -5 when it came out. Looking at a film 45 years old, the amount of people that talk about it, I think it's probably one of the most talked about, or is one of the most talked about horror films of all time. I remember, do you use IMDb?
Yes.
Yeah. So when I started using IMDb, you only had to have a 7.8 to get into the top 250.
Right.
Right. I think you need to be 8.2 now to get into there. But I remember Halloween was at 7.7, and I was like voted at 10. I was like, please get into the top 250. Eventually, it went up to 7.8, and it got to, I think it was 248th best movie of all time.
Wow.
I'm like, I can't believe it. Halloween's in the top 250.
Yeah.
But now it's went back down to 7.7, and it's way out within the parameters of a top 250 movie now, because you need to be like 8.2 or something now.
Yeah.
And I was so gutted, and because at the time I was like, a film has to be in the top 250 to be great, and Halloween just isn't great.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying to myself. I'm like, maybe it's just me that likes Halloween and nobody else.
No.
But then obviously when social media came around, I would talk to people online because my wife doesn't want to talk about horror films. And I'm like, and you guys like Halloween? And like, oh, duh. I'm like, what do you mean, duh? I thought it was just me that liked Halloween.
Yeah.
You know, so you get that community. That's one of the reasons I set up my YouTube channel. But just getting a community of fans that absolutely love Halloween. I didn't realise how big Halloween was until social media. What about yourself? Did you know? Or did you think it was just you and your papa?
Again, this is kind of the reason I started podcasting and meeting people that are like us. I didn't have anybody in my life that was into the same stuff and didn't want to sit and talk about movies and weren't really into horror. I didn't have anybody like that. So I've only really found these people within the last 8 months.
Yeah.
But I obviously found your channel, and because you're Scottish, naturally gravitated towards you, and then I actually enjoyed your content. Like, I was like, there's another guy out there that loves Halloween as much as I do, because I could talk about Halloween all day. But yeah, I just didn't know that it was such a massive deal.
Yeah, and but especially us being from Scotland as well, and it's still not a massive deal in Scotland.
No,
because
people know who Michael Myers is.
Yeah, I've got a cousin Brian who loves Halloween, which is crazy because that's a family member who loves it. But apart from you and my cousin Brian, I don't know anyone who I could sit and talk to and have a conversation about not just Halloween but horror films.
Yeah,
it's weird. Like, it's almost like Scotland. In Scotland, we think, nah, you're a geek.
Yeah.
If you like films, you're a geek if you like Halloween films, or a crazy guy if you like Halloween films.
Yeah.
It's just weird. Like, we don't see films the way that Americans or Canadians or anyone else sees films. They take it more seriously and more passionate.
Yeah.
And that's why I love my American audience more, because they get really involved, whether they like my content or not. They get really involved in the discussions. Like, I'll say something like Stu's alive and Scream 6 or Scream 7.
Yeah, he is.
And they'll be like, well, how can you say? And even though they're trying to berate me and argue with me, I'll read it and go, I absolutely love that person's passion.
Yeah.
Because they're so against my idea that they're passionate about what they believe. Whereas in Scotland, we write a comment and we're like, I don't care.
But then we've talked about this before. You and I are probably would fit in America.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're really into American culture in terms of like the movies and stuff like that. So I was watching a video, a guy called Patrick H. Willems. I don't know if you ever saw any of his stuff on YouTube. And he did a video about the OC, which is a show that both of us love. And he said that was a turning point for pop culture because it gave pop culture to the masses. Because people were watching that, and it was like Seth's music and the geekiness of it. That was the comic books. That was all accepted. And then all of a sudden there was Marvel movies. And I think now there's more people like us out there. But back when we were kids, not so much.
Nah, it was a kind of nothing, because we never had social media, internet and stuff. We were just playing the dirt.
Yeah.
And that was it.
And I think Scottish people don't really like getting involved in stuff as well, in terms of like commenting and liking and like getting involved in the chat. They just kind of want to keep their distance.
Yeah. I try and get a more Scottish following on my channel, but you can only get so many.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure there's a few Scottish people that watch my channel or maybe subscribe, but you don't get a lot of Scottish commenters. And when they do comment, I really like it because I'm like, oh, another fellow Scot.
Yep.
And sometimes they'll say, hi there, I'm a fellow Scot, love your channel. And I'm like, I don't get that very often.
No.
So it's hard. So when you talk about Halloween to people in Scotland, it's just kind of like, nah. Not interested.
I think everybody knows who Michael Myers is. They just they've probably maybe not seen Halloween. They just know the mask because it's iconic.
Yeah, he's part of pop culture now.
Yeah, but yeah, as I said, in Scotland, there's not a huge amount of awareness about Halloween at all. If you speak to people about it, they're like, what, that old movie?
Yeah, like or you say like, oh, there's a new Halloween film coming out, and they go, again, there must be about 30 of them. Are they still brother and sister and stuff? And you're like, oh, please don't. And it's hard.
Well, let me tell you something.
I know. Well, if you watch the other 12 films, you'll understand. I'm going to go into comments by you guys online. So I'll read out your comment and we'll just have a little chat about the comment. And some of the comments might just be not questions or anything, or hardly any of them are questions.
Yeah.
But I'll read some of them out. So
do we know where these people are from?
No.
Okay, cool.
So some of them might say where they're from, but if they don't, then we've got no idea.
Brilliant.
So the first one is from Ross Mitchie. Ross said, was round at my mates. See, that sounds British.
And Ross Mitchie sounds Scottish, to be honest.
It could be. Right, so he was round at my mates when I was 10 and seen an advert for it shown on BBC on Sunday. Then Sunday night, I seen it was on and stayed up late and watched it. I became obsessed. Got my dad to buy me the VHS with 1 and 2 from Woolworths, and then seen H2O, 6, and finally got 4 and 5. It sounds like the way I watched them. Like,
yeah.
And he went to Woolworths.
It's definitely British.
Yeah, he's definitely British. Now, it sounds like my upbringing as well, and yours as well. So I'm guessing he's from the UK.
Yeah.
But he was 10 and he watched it on the BBC. Do you know what's weird? A lot of comments, not just for this video, but other videos, people say they watched a film on AMC Fear Fest and stuff like that. We never had that in the UK.
No, definitely American.
Yeah, so we had like channels 1 to 4, and then channel 5 eventually came.
Yeah.
I had cable. I was lucky enough to have cable TV, but it was always like action, thriller, comedy, romantic films. Hardly any horror films on there.
Van Damme and Stallone movies and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I still loved them, of course, but there was just hardly any horror. We had the horror channel and the sci-fi channel, but they played Z movies that you'd never heard of. So, nah.
No, I loved that as well. Like having 5 channels and just being like, you just tune into something.
Well, you had to choose, didn't you? You were never spoiled for choice.
Yeah, and they always did have good movies. It was normally BBC that had the best movies, and then Channel 4 started doing a lot, and then Channel 5. But the breaks in between killed me.
Oh,
Channel 5 was
minutes.
like every 20 minutes there was a break, and you're like, God.
I know. Next one is, I was going to say next question. Next one's from Joe, who's actually called Shadow Dra 126. They've said, I watched this movie for the first time last year. Oof, amazing. I've never been a fan of horror. I was a coward through and through. My best friend convinced me to watch the first one with him, just to try it,
Just a tip.
Just to try it since it was his favourite. I agreed. I fell in love. We watched every movie that weekend. So there you go. Do you know, there's people that don't like horror or who do like horror but have never seen Halloween.
Yeah.
And Halloween's obviously the best one to start with, the
Absolutely.
first one, because that's the top quality one. And watching all of them over the weekend, that's some job. And you must have loved the film.
That's a
lot.
great weekend.
Yeah. Hopefully they didn't get put off after like The Curse of Michael Myers or Halloween 5 or something, but at least they watched them all.
Yeah.
And I kind of envy you, Joe, because you imagine getting to watch Halloween for the first time again.
Yeah.
How good would that be?
That's I think I've had a conversation about this recently as well, about watching something for the first time. What would you watch?
Yeah.
And it's so hard, but I guess watching, if you could take all the feelings away that you had the first time you watched it and have them again, Halloween would definitely be up there.
Oh, it's going to be. Oh, for me, it would definitely be Back to the Future because it is the greatest film of all time. But Halloween, watching that for the first time again, you'd be like, remember the scene where Michael's coming across and Laurie's chatting to get Tommy to open the door. Tommy, open up. And you see Michael coming towards her.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so advanced as well. You're like, oh my God, get in that house, hurry up. Tommy, you wee, bam, open the door. And he's like,
And again, that's a trope that's overused in horror now. That they kind of, they were, what would you call it, trailblazers of a lot of the stuff in Halloween, just because, you know, that is an intense scene, but it's done so much now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Next one, we've got Christopher Charles 3426. They said, I first watched Halloween around 7 or 8 years old back in 1985 or 86 on VHS at my aunt's house. I loved the music and was hooked. Still to this day, I was fascinated how he kept getting up. Sometimes I just have to watch the opening credits when the pumpkin lights up and that synth bass drops. You get that sense something bad is coming.
Yeah.
Oh, I totally agree. Like, it even takes me back to going to my auntie's house. She had VHS tapes as well, some horror as well, and I'd be like, oh, I want to watch that. And just watching it in a little small TV and with the bad quality. We didn't know it was bad quality. It was the best quality at the time.
Yep.
And just hearing the score coming on after the pumpkin and stuff. Oh,
yeah.
It was so good. Wasn't it?
It's so good. And like, there's a theme here. Everybody's young when they've saw it for the first time. You know, I wonder if that's a thing that's missing from a lot of people that are not into horror or anything like that. They've just not seen it young.
So when they watch it when they're older, like, nah.
Yeah.
You know, but like, don't tell Jamie Lee Curtis that though, because she doesn't like it when kids watch horror films. Next one, we've got Lieutenant, well, LT, I'm guessing it's Lieutenant.
Wow.
Lieutenant Loomis. 8176. Good name. Had just seen H2O in summer of 98 and rented Halloween on VHS a week later on a blistering August day. That intro for a new generation felt special and began as slight obsession. Visiting HalloweenMovies.com, waiting on Halloween 8 news, and desperate for rare clips of Halloween 6 producer's cut from Kazaa. LOL. Kazaa is a downloading software,
right?
Illegal downloading software back in the day. Making sense of the timeline decades before YouTube was a blast. Did you use HalloweenMovies.com?
I didn't. Maybe actually. It does ring a bell.
It started in the late 90s, just round about Halloween H2O time.
Yeah.
I used it in school. I never had internet in the house. So when I went into school, we had computing class.
Right.
But for the first 10 minutes before computing class started, everybody would go online on the internet, like, oh my God, I'm using the internet. So I'd be like, the first thing I would do is go HalloweenMovies.com and the page comes down like this.
Yeah.
Like, hurry up, the teacher's coming. And then I would read up the news on the new Halloween Homecoming, it was called, after Halloween H2O, because I'm like, it's going to be the ghost of Michael Myers or something. And I remember it's called Halloween Homecoming, and I stayed up to date with Resurrection until the bitter end. And it was HalloweenMovies.com that I always used. So that guy just brought back so many memories.
I vaguely remember it round about Rob Zombie made Halloween. I think I went onto a website and was kind of reading up a lot of stuff around about that time. I don't know if it's Halloween.com, but it might have been.
HalloweenMovies.com is still going on today. It's still open. And when the person says Kazaa spelled Kazaa. It's like your LimeWire or your BitTorrent or uTorrent and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Kazaa was the place that I used to go. Sorry, guys. I used to go to get like songs and stuff like that when I was younger.
Yeah. LimeWire for me. God, remember those days?
We don't do it anymore, guys.
No, we just illegally stream our movies.
Next one. We hear this one. Someone called A. Howarth 2. Alan Howarth.
Oh.
Imagine it was the real Alan Howarth.
Hopefully, we never know.
Anyway, Alan, if you're watching. First time I watched Halloween was when I was about 6 or 7 in 1986 or 87. Oh, well, it's not the real Alan Howarth. And in the afternoon, I watched it with my mum, Nan, and aunties. And at the time, they had an outdoor toilet. And after Loomis shot Michael and then looked over the balcony and Michael was gone, I couldn't go to the toilet by myself. My mum had to wait outside for me. Those are great memories. I don't remember half the things I'd done when I was a kid, but there's certain things you remember.
Yeah.
And even as silly as that, I would remember something like that as well.
Yeah.
You know, like going to the toilet because you're scared after being young again, like you said.
Absolutely. Could you imagine, though, trying to watch Halloween while all your aunties and your mum are having a chat? That would just be like the wrong environment.
So annoying, wouldn't it? I'm like, shut up. shh, I can't hear, because it's a quiet film as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very quiet film. So when you're watching it, if your mum and parents or whoever are talking about, oh, your Auntie Teresa went and done this today, you're like, okay, okay. Even as a 6 or 7 year old, you'd still be like, shh.
If that was my kid and we had an outside door toilet, I'd be like, Boogeyman's gonna get you.
So as soon as I hear the pee start flowing, I would be like, "Whoa." I do that to Jack.
I'm going to ask earlier on, I forgot. I take it Jack's seen Halloween?
He's seen the first one in H2O.
Right.
The other ones, I don't think he can at the moment. There's certain things, I'll watch a horror film, and if I think it's safe enough to watch, then I'll let Jack watch it with me in the comfort of my own home.
Yeah.
Halloween doesn't have any blood in it, so I'm like, right, okay, we'll watch that. And H2O is more like a teeny bopper slasher film, so he's okay with that just now. So I think when it comes to it, he'll probably start watching them himself without me knowing, because he's 12 now. He's at secondary school. You know, he's...
What age was he when you showed him it?
10.
10.
11. So it's
around
only
about that age gap that we're talking about.
Yeah, only over the past few years, but no doubt he's got his own phone, he's got his own TV, he's got his own room, he's got his own friends, he goes out with his friends now. I'm pretty sure that they'll probably watch worse things than... Yeah. And again, I'm not going to give him any trouble for that, because I done that, and it's a part of growing up. Yeah. You know, so I think...
You'd kind of be proud of him for going around to his mates and watching Halloween.
Exactly. There's worse things you could watch, you know, so I think if he sticks to Halloween or horror films, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think every kid's different as well. You know, you could get a kid who is just completely scared of everything. Yeah. I wouldn't even recommend a film at Halloween to them. But if a kid's exploring, they love films, they love horror. Jack loves being scared, he loves going trick-or-treating. So it's only natural that he would want to watch something like that.
And did he like it?
He loved it.
Oh, good.
He loved it. His favourite one's Halloween, the first one so far. So he's got a good head and shoulders.
Awesome. He's going to be a pro footballer one day.
Yeah, will be. Well, hopefully.
Project Mbappe has started.
Well, that's what we say. You want to be the next Mbappe? He's like, no, I want to be the first Jack Cameron.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
He's already got the ego for it.
Exactly.
Yes.
So the next one I've got is Matt Kirby, 5151. Matt comments quite a lot, so hello, Matt. Matt said, I watched the original I watched the original when I was 12, so back in 1999. The one memory I have was pausing during the moment when Laurie is locked out of the house and Michael was coming across the road. It was so intense at the time, it really made my skin crawl. That's the scene. That's what I think that might be my scariest scene. I think I did say that. It's a great scene in it.
It's just so well done. And again, for being at the time it was. But I can remember getting the first time I saw it, really caught up in that as well, because your heart starts beating really fast. Yeah. It's just such an awesome moment, because you're like, he's going to get her. Yeah. But he doesn't.
There's after this video comes out, I've already got my Halloween 4 one already out, my 35th anniversary. Oh. And somebody said about pausing a scene in Halloween 4, like, the scary scene, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's not the scene I paused in Halloween 4. It's the scene with Kelly Meeker at the fireplace. That's the scene I always paused it when I was younger.
Even now.
Even now.
Just reaching for the lotion.
Next one we've got is from Jared A. They've said, I've seen this movie over 100 times. Wow. And I still get chills from the intensity. I try to see it at the cinema every year in the fall. We mentioned this off air that we were lucky enough to see Halloween in the cinema in 2018 for the 40th anniversary. Yep. What an experience that was. Like, I never thought I would get to see it in the cinema. Yeah. And then when the 40th anniversary came out, I'm like, I need to see it in the cinema. And everybody in the cinema, or I'm guessing most people in the cinema, had already seen the movie. Yeah. But they stood up and clapped at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. We were both at the same
We're probably the same show, right?
Because there was only one showing, I think.
Was there only one show?
I'm sure.
It must have been.
Was it on Halloween night as well? Either that or it was like the week before, but it was definitely like...
It was the night before Halloween 2018 came out, I'm sure.
That's right, yeah. That rings a bell, because I took my then partner along, and that was the first time she was seeing Halloween. Oh. So it was a really special night, and then we got to go and watch 2018. Yeah. And then I'll watch all the other ones, which was awesome. It was a really cool moment. Yeah. Yeah,
But yeah, this person goes to see it every year. Luckily,
Yeah.
we don't get that in Scotland.
No, I watch it on Halloween night every single year without fail. Doesn't matter what I'm doing. I always watch that on Halloween
It's the
night.
same with me. Even if I don't watch it, I'll put it on in the background. So if I'm making my dinner or whatever, I'll just walk past the TV and go, oh, love that bit. Oh, there's a bit there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll always have it on. We always have Hocus Pocus on as well for the kids. But I'll always have Halloween on non-stop because, again, it's amazing. Next one, we've got Thomas Green. Thomas Green said, favourite horror movie ever. Agreed. When Michael Myers raises up, then turns his head to stare at Laurie, gets me every time. Also, the most iconic soundtrack in the history of horror, suspense, cinema. Yeah, do you remember that? But again, that depth of field that they don't use a lot in films today. When Laurie's against the door, she's like, oh, and you just see Michael sitting up, turning around. I was like, I
know.
Do you know what that's good about that scene is the audience know what's happening, but Laurie doesn't.
Yeah.
How great is that? How advanced is that?
It's so good. And just the face coming out of the blackness as well. It's so well done. And again, that's what I love about horror, when you can see something the character can't. Mike Flanigan does that well in Hush. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen that, where the character and it's deaf, and she's doing like the dishes or something, and the bad guy's standing right behind her the whole time, and you're just like,
because she's deaf and she can't hear it. It was so good. Like, and the bit that you talked about with Michael coming out of the darkness, and the person in this comment said about the soundtrack, when it comes out, you hear it going, the score is so perfect to everything that happens in the film. When Michael sits up, it goes din din din, and it goes ding 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 ding. It's unbelievable. Like, it's so advanced. I don't think John Carpenter knew how advanced it was until 45 years later.
I get the feeling he's just rocked up to the studio one day and he's been like, right, I need to do this because I need to, and he's just not realised. But again, that's what a lot of artists say, don't they? They say, I didn't realise it would be a hit. No, but surely writing that and putting that together, you're like, holy fuck.
That sounds like it could be good. I don't think, maybe as it was written and stuff, like, oh, this could be good. But when they filmed it, they're like, this could be really good. And then watching it for the first time for them, they might go, shit, we just made a really good film.
Yeah.
On $300,000.
Because I think they previewed it to the studio without the soundtrack. And they were like, nah, we're not into this at all. Really? And then they put the soundtrack to it and they were like, holy shit.
It shows you how much a soundtrack can be so important for a film. Yeah. Because imagine you put like the Halloween 5 soundtrack into Halloween 1 with the police, I don't know if you remember, but the police officers, you hear like clown music.
Yeah.
And you're like, can you imagine doing that in Halloween?
Yeah.
It would be completely different and would take away from the tone of the film. But I think that's why Halloween is the greatest film or the greatest horror film ever, because the soundtrack is top notch, cinematography top notch. I think the only issue with Halloween for me, and it's not perfect, is the acting.
Right.
Donald Pleasance, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Everybody else, below par.
I don't think you have enough to do tomorrow. Totally.
Yeah, and you know, when you were there on the 40th anniversary, there was a lot of people kind of giggling at some of the stupidness of the acting, you know, like Jamie Lee Curtis kind of like crying, whimpering, and people were like, oh my God, this is cringy. So bad. But some of the performances are questionable.
Well, I think a bit everybody laughed in my cinema was when Bob and Linda were in the car and like, we can tear our clothes off, and then we can tear Lindsay's clothes off, and they're like, excuse me?
Yeah.
You're going to tear a 10-year-old's clothes off?
Yeah.
Is that a mistake? And people are just laughing in the cinema like, who wrote this?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of cringy moments, and that is down to the acting, I think.
Yeah.
I genuinely think that was Bob's mistake. The guy who played Bob, he probably meant to say Laurie, but he said Lindsay instead of Laurie, and they kept it in.
I think he deserved to die for that.
Well, he definitely. But I think Michael's listening and going, you absolute creep.
Yeah.
Dead.
It's really the anti-hero, Michael Myers, isn't it?
Well, do you know what? That's leading up to the end of the video, but he is like an anti-hero now, isn't he? Because when people watch Halloween now, they root for Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Whereas the first film that ever came out, you're like, please die, hope Laurie lives. Same with Halloween 2, die, hope Laurie lives. But as the movies progress, you're like, do you know what? Michael Myers is the one that I want to see now.
Yeah.
Because before, it wasn't supposed to be Michael Myers because it's not called Michael Myers. It's called Halloween. So you want the bad guy to die, but now it's all about Michael Myers.
Yeah, and I think there's something about that nobody wants to be the hero anymore. Everybody wants to be the villain. People have saw the Joker and saw being a crazy person is quite fun. Nobody wants to be the hero anymore. I don't know if that's got anything to say about what society's like now, but we just all root for the wrong people, really.
But I think also in films now, they try and make the bad guy have a reason for being a bad guy.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll do that with Michael Myers.
No.
But with the Joker, as amazing that film is, they give him too much of a sense of being good.
Yeah.
Like the anti-hero. So I think although people are bad guys in films, they are kind of good to us as the audience.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be that. I wouldn't mind if I saw the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix, being a bad guy and being very bad, and people want him to die.
Yeah.
In the film, of course. So yeah, there's a fine line between being a good guy and a bad guy. But like you said, yes, if somebody said to me, "Do you want to play Batman or do you want to play Joker?" I'd be like, put me down for the Joker.
Yeah. And I guess like with us loving horror movies and slasher movies, we go to a Scream movie to see Ghostface. We go to a Halloween movie to see Michael Myers. That's just what it is.
I know.
But there's just something about that we love to see the bad guy.
I know. It's a shame. But anyway, guys, that's us to the end of our special episode, Halloween 45th anniversary edition. I want to say a big massive thanks to Callum for coming, because it's hard to talk about a film like Halloween myself because there's no one to bounce off of. And I thought no one loves Halloween as much as Callum in Scotland.
Apart from you.
Apart from me. But yeah, so thanks again, Callum, for coming on. It was great hearing your insights. And I'm glad I didn't ask you questions before it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to know anything about your experience to Halloween until you told me to the audience.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot for sharing that with me.
Thank you for having me. It's a huge honour again.
Everybody who commented as well. Again, I'm sorry I didn't read them all out. The video would be way too long. But thanks again for everyone who commented. I genuinely read them all. I loved all your comments. I loved all your memories. And that was just some of them that I read out. So thanks to everyone who got involved. Thanks to Callum. Thanks to the Podcast Studio Glasgow for hosting this for us. But anyway, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Be right back.
What are you waiting for, huh?
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Ever played Skin the Cat?
Someone's in the back! See